Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. My name is Patrick Botz-Forbes. I am the LAFD CERT Central Bureau Coordinator, and I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year. We were off for the last couple months of last year. I really wanted to get this presentation out last year, but decided I didn't want to rush it and put out a subpar product. Additionally, we try and pair these with a drill. So the Eventbrite just got put up today, and I'll share a slide with everybody with the information on that. The drill is going to do exactly what we're doing in this presentation, so you'll get a chance to exercise that and practice it. For those of you who don't know what the Community Emergency Response Team training is, it was actually created in Los Angeles by the LAFD, the Los Angeles Fire Department. It was taken over by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and FEMA focuses on subcontracting out the creation of the curriculum for the Community Emergency Response Team training. And it really is just training. There's no CERT organization, or there's no CERT, massive CERT group out there. It is local to your jurisdiction. What this curriculum does is it teaches you how to be prepared for a disaster. The expectation being that after a disaster, you and your neighbors are really going to have to deal with things on your own until the professionals can arrive. So this training gives you a baseline of how to be prepared, how to safely help your neighbors out until the professionals can arrive. They are coming, but as we've seen from over the last several years of Category 5 hurricanes, blizzards, snowstorms, snow in Texas, the professionals are going to have a lot that they're focusing on, saving life and limb. And if you can help your neighbors out to prevent that injury from becoming life-threatening, you're really going to take a load off the system and help the system catch up with where it needs to be. The CERT programs are managed by government agencies. So each state has a CERT program coordinator, and each government agency that runs a CERT program, such as the fire department, sheriffs, sometimes emergency management departments, will run it at the local level. However, what we see is typically these are teach and release programs. Depending on your jurisdiction and who's running it, there's not enough resources, instructors, employees of that government agency to really get into the weeds and really focus on where and controlling how resources are allocated and how teams are formed. So usually they'll just teach the program, and then at the end of the class say, good luck, you're on your own. Don't call us, we'll call you. And the expectation, unfortunately, is that you're actually going to get a call from your fire department telling you to suit up, put your bag on, and get out there. But the reality is that's never going to happen. So it is a great program in what it does. However, to implement it fully to where it needs to be, it's impractical. And that's unfortunately the reality. What we do find interesting is, however, that more rural programs embrace CERT a little bit more than urban programs do in terms of not teaching it, not supporting it so much, but actually being able to be hands-on and be in the field with you. A lot of the more rural programs where there's not infrastructure, where there's not a large government presence, they see the value of CERT because they need the volunteers. And we actually have CERT volunteers in emergency operations centers helping run them in more rural areas. Urban populations, cities such as Los Angeles City, Los Angeles County, however, we have all the professionals. We have people who work at the emergency operations center. We have an entire department there. We have the fire department that comes in and staffs positions, the sheriff's, police departments come in and staff positions, and there's no need for the volunteers under normal circumstances because they have the professionals who have training, who practice doing this. And so we see in large urban areas, which quite frankly need the CERT program and maybe even support it more than the rural ones do, they don't know how to deal with these volunteers who are unvetted, unverified. If you've taken the CERT training, but you haven't had a background check, you could be a great asset or you could be a serial killer. And there's no way to know that. And so these larger cities can't take the risk of you being a crazy person and causing problems when you think you're there to help. Crazy being not necessarily that you realize you're crazy or intending to do anything wrong, but maybe overzealous. You want to help and you want to help so much that you actually cause problems. And the simple reality is that it's up to the local leaders to figure out how to get your team going and how to start it, regardless of where you live, regardless of the support you have from your local program. If there is not a local leader, local team, these programs simply don't exist. And we see this to varying degrees throughout the United States. And that's where the neighborhood team program came in. And this was created over 10 years ago in the city of Los Angeles by LA City CERT coordinators who are volunteers that want to help and that have been trained and have been vetted by the fire department. We designed the program to really focus on that latter part, that's not something the city can do. And that's help build, organize, and train these teams, these local teams in each neighborhood, in each community. To that end, we relaunched it at the beginning of COVID. We realized there was a problem when the city shut down and the mayor shut down all volunteer programs and reallocated the staff of the fire department's CERT unit to test for COVID and fight COVID, and really left us in a lurch. We decided to relaunch this program and focus on building those teams, finding team leaders, but not just saying, okay, good luck, you're on your own, but really hold their hands and help them build their teams and be an ever-present part of that team building process, not just at the beginning, but moving forward as well. As you build your team, we want to be there to help you train more people, help you organize better, help you get past the initial steps and sustain the team beyond, quite frankly, beyond us. Too many times a team will die when somebody moves out of the area. A team leader, and unfortunately, sometimes it is not just moving out, but unfortunately, the average age of CERT tends to be, I half jokingly say 75. So the reality is that some of our older members have the time to do this, but may not be there in the long run. And so we would hate to see, and we've seen this happen over and over again, we hate to see teams die when that key person is no longer present. So we want to really build these teams to last generationally. And that's what we're trying to do with the neighborhood team program. We put together templates and trainings, step-by-step guides. We're doing these monthly to bring in new concepts and push new ideas, but also reinforce the things that we're talking about in the documentation. And then we do the drills so that you get the muscle memory and help you build out your teams and give you the experience of what it may look like when that disaster occurs. In Los Angeles, we're blessed with, while being vulnerable to most disasters, we don't get them as often as the rest of the country does. For those of you who don't live in Los Angeles, we have earthquakes. They're scary. Don't come here. What really scares me is a hurricane or a tornado. The sky literally opening up, reaching down, picking up my home and throwing it across the town, versus an earthquake, which can be catastrophic, but we're so long overdue for a massive earthquake in Los Angeles that really nobody knows what it's going to look like. Northridge was a localized disaster in the valley in Northridge, but other parts of the city of Los Angeles lost power and had no damage. And then a few hours later, the power came back and we forgot, we cleaned up whatever fell off the shelves and we went back to our lives. The last regional disaster in Los Angeles, ironically, was a flood. And we saw how catastrophic that has been in the rest of the state, as well as some parts of Los Angeles. So we don't know how bad it is, but we train so that when it happens, we're ready and that we have some idea of how bad it's going to be and what to do about it. These templates, these guidelines, they're not, this is how you will do it. It's an idea of how it could be done, and we encourage you to then adapt it, adjust it, make it more to your needs, your team's needs. But it's an idea of how to get started versus, unfortunately, the CERT training just says, here are the basics, and then good luck, figure it out on your own. So we really want to provide those step-by-step guides and show you an idea so that you don't have to come up with it on your own. So you don't have to start from scratch. Every team can template off this so that they can work together, they can practice in other areas, and they've seen the same thing over and over again because they go to the different areas that we train in and then just adjust it. But the baseline's there, the standard is there so that you have an idea, okay, I've seen this and this is how it works. And then we provide tools and resources, the mailing list. The last email blast that went out to, well, there were over 1,000 people who opened those emails. Hopefully not all of them unsubscribed, but of course, with 1,000 people looking at them, we do have some unsubscribes. We do encourage everybody to, if you have not signed up for the neighborhood team program, join.ntp-la.org. That's our email list. So you'll find out about these trainings. And then visit our website, ntp-la.org. The document package is where we have these templated documents. We designed them to be no more than 4 pages long. So it's not a massive read. You don't have to read through a thesaurus-sized book just to get the core information. And then this is an ever-growing, ever-evolving program. So we'll update the documents, adjust them as we drill, and see, okay, that didn't work as well. Let's fine-tune it and readjust, and then release the new document with the updated information. Previous presentations are on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, search for LAFD CERT, you'll find us as LAFD CERT coordinators. The video link here that I provided, I think it's more curated, but it hasn't been updated in a while. So I encourage you to go to YouTube and just find our videos there. Calendar is a Google Calendar, calendar.ntp-la.org. You can subscribe to it, add it to your calendar. So as we put up events, they'll pop up on your calendar without you even having to do anything. But if you want to go to training.ntp-la.org, that's all of our Eventbrites, and you can go ahead and periodically check that out. We try and get them up in the first couple weeks of the month. And then if you have any questions, you can email me at patrick@disasterprep.org. The core of this is we set up a neighborhood staging area. CERT training teaches this, but they don't tell you what it is, how it's set up, what happens there. You're simply go to your closest staging area. And a lot of times that gets conflated with, well, it could be a fire station, could be a school, could be a lot of different things that are not practical in reality. A fire station is not going to have anyone there after an earthquake because they're going to be out and busy. So the chances of you getting into the fire station are pretty limited. If you go to a school and there's students on campus right after an earthquake, they'll go into lockdown and they will not allow people to come in from the outside. So there's a lot of impractical places to have a staging area. We're working with our teams to find practical staging areas and get them kitted up so that there's enough equipment there and gear so that you can get started right after the earthquake. We'll have a whiteboard there with a map of the area, clipboards, all the forms you need, all the documentation that's in the package, radios, first aid resupply. And this is a templated system so that every staging area kit will have at least the basics there. These are really the meeting point for your neighborhood. If you want to help out and you're not CERT trained, you're encouraged to join the neighborhood team program. We're not saying you have to be CERT trained yet. We hope to get the training, but it's open for everybody. And then meet there and then form teams, send them out. Each staging area, as we've practiced this, really can service maybe about a half-mile radius. That's about 5 blocks. The baseline for that is the damage assessment team should be able to survey their route in an hour and make it back to the staging area. If it's taking you 2 hours, that's too much area to cover. Your radios probably won't even be able to go that far. So really 5 blocks is what you're looking at, or about a half mile away from the staging area. You're going to deploy damage assessment teams. These teams are going to find out how bad things are and let the staging area know what incidents are out there that need to be responded to. The staging area is then going to prioritize where they're going to send the incident response teams. We don't have all the resources in the world. Chances are we're going to be very strapped for resources right at the very beginning, resources being people and supplies and equipment. But hopefully as the incident grows, more people will show up, and then you'll have more resources coming in that can then go out and help out their neighbors. And then we want to communicate up to command level teams, liaison level teams, to the fire department, to the police departments. Let them know in the neighborhood where we need their help. And that will be a massive asset to the fire department because they won't know where they need to send people either. And chances are 911 is going to be completely overloaded. Most people's cell phones won't work. And getting information to the fire department is really where we're going to show the most benefit, because we can tell them, okay, this is what we have at this location, and let them then prioritize where they're going to send their resources. A team leader is, most people think it's the most important person on the team. Most people want to be the team leader. I would actually argue that it is, while it is a valuable person on the team, not the most important person, and not for the reasons that you might believe. The primary job of a team leader is to keep the team safe. If you're a team leader, you should be hands off. You should not be diving in, getting all bloody and bandaging people up and saving the world. You're there to make sure that your team succeeds. If your team succeeds, you succeed as a team leader. And like I said, you're hands off. As soon as you go hands on, you fail at job number one, and that's keeping your team safe. Because how can you keep your team safe if you're hyper focused on a survivor in front of you that you're bandaging up? You can't make sure that there's not a truck barreling down on top of the rest of your team. So really the team leader's job is to take a step back, make sure the team can do their job, and that's be their damage assessment, incident response, running the staging area, and make sure everyone can accomplish that mission safely. And most importantly, make it home safely. And that, in the end of the day, is the most successful team, is the one that makes it home safely. What you can do is delegate tasks, and you're really going to provide direction and make sure the team stays on mission. There's a lot of distractions out there, and really a good team leader is going to make sure that everyone knows what the mission is, what the task at hand is, and gets it accomplished without taking 3 times as long as it should, just because of all the distractions. Scribe, on the other hand, is, I feel, actually the most important role. And the reason for that is, if it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. And this will come up over and over again. A good team, a good group will live or die on their documentation. And that is, okay, what are the incidents? Well, it had to be written down. If you're trying to keep track of all these incidents in your head, that's not going to work. Where was that incident? How many survivors did we have at that incident? This all needs to be documented. This all needs to be written down. Scribes are going to write, they're going to document, they're going to take notes, they're going to keep track, and most importantly, share the information that they're tracking. And when somebody has a question about something, they're the repository of what happened, how something happened, when it happened, and critically, where it happened and where people need to go. If you're on an incident and you're assigned the role of scribe, don't think that's a negative role. Don't think, oh, I'm just here to write things down. You're there hopefully because you're good at writing things down. And without that information, your team is not going to be able to succeed. I like to think of the scribe as a deputy to the team leader. The deputy does everything, or can do everything, that the team leader can do. And by knowing and having this information, knowing what happened, where it happened, how it happened, you're able to actually be more successful as a team leader than the team leader who wants to be the team leader, if that makes sense. A communicator is someone who, well, quite frankly, communicates. They are just as vital as the team leader, quite frankly, just as much as the scribe, but they're more of a force multiplier than anything else. You can have a radio operator who can talk to the staging area, and that's going to be a massive asset. But if your radios don't work, you're going to have to send a runner. And so if you're sending a runner back and forth to staging, your area of operation is going to be very limited. You're not going to be able to go more than a couple blocks and realistically be able to send a runner that distance. So having someone who's competent on radios is critical to really that team being able to operate, but that person should be working with their scribe so that they know what to communicate. There are many different roles to any incident. And what we've tried to do with the neighborhood team program is really focus on simplifying things down. We talk about incident command system in CERT, and FEMA does it. Quite frankly, quite realistically, incident command is the dominant system out there for a variety of reasons. It's very flexible, expandable. It can suit really any purpose, any kind of event. But if you don't deal with incident command system, it can be overwhelming. If you don't live and breathe it every day, it can be too much. And for our CERT teams, for our non-trained team members, hyper focusing on all the different roles in an incident command system is daunting at best, traumatic at worst, and it's too much minutia. So we really focus on 4 different roles in our system: your team leader, your scribe, communicator, and a responder. Each of these will have a different role and position, but they're generally going to do the same thing at all levels. At the staging area, your team leader is the staging manager. On a team, they're going to be the team leader, damage assessment team, incident response team leader. At a medical TARP, they're going to either be the group supervisor or a TARP leader. Scribe, as I mentioned, a scribe is an amazing deputy. They're aware of everything that's going on, and they're going to have more up-to-date information than the staging manager themselves will. Other roles that they're going to perform, they're going to do team tracking, incident tracking, and radio logging. If they're out in the field on a damage assessment team, they're doing incident tracking. They're identifying what information they're sending up and what information is coming back from the staging area. If you're on an incident response team, again, you're doing incident tracking. Where are we going? What are we expecting to see there? What information did we encounter at this incident, and what are we sending back to the staging area? And then if you're on a medical TARP, you're doing patient tracking. And that's critical to know: how many survivors do we have here? What's their criticality? How many immediates do we need to get transported? Were they transported? Where did they go? And if anybody's looking for them, of course, that's critical. If you have a family member, need to know where their family member went, that scribe is going to be a godsend to that family. Communicators, let's focus not on runners, but on radio operators. If you're at a staging area, you're talking to the teams out there in the field, or maybe you're talking to other staging areas, or you're talking to the command level element, you're talking to your liaison team out there, sending information up to the fire department or whatever government agency you're working with. If you're on a team, your comms are back to staging. You're that lifeline, that link to staging, and that is your primary duty, is to push information to staging, because staging has no idea what you're encountering out there until you tell them. And if you're on a medical TARP, again, comms to staging. You're sending information up to staging. How many survivors do we have here? How many need transport immediately, or they're going to die? That kind of information. And then, of course, when you do have people transport out, you let staging know so they can adjust their numbers. The responder is really the hands-on unit. If you're not a team leader, you're not a scribe, you're not a communicator, you're a hands-on responder. And at the staging area, there's not much for you to do. It's really going to be the domain of the scribes and communicators. If you're on a damage assessment team, you should not be a hands-on responder. Where you need to be is you need to be on an incident response team, or you need to be at a medical TARP. You're the one who is going to help people. You're going to be doing medical. You're going to be maybe doing search and rescue. You're going to be, maybe just cordoning off areas that are dangerous. But you're the ones who will get dirty. You're the ones who will have fun doing this. And so if you want to really get into it and do things, be that hands-on responder. Don't be the team leader. At a staging area, there are a lot of different roles and priorities. And if you're the staging manager, your priority number one, again, over and over again, is to make sure everybody gets home safely. If you have someone get injured or worse, everyone has failed at their job. Safety is paramount. We do not bring a victim to an incident. Rule number one of CERT. And that comes out of really what LAFD saw when they went down to Mexico after the Mexico earthquake. They saw a lot of people helping each other out. They were eagerly helping their neighbors and doing things unsafely. And unfortunately, when the aftershock occurred the next morning, a lot of the volunteer responders lost their lives. And so this is where the CERT program really focuses. Do things safely. Make sure everyone makes it home at the end of the day. After that, maintain the big picture. A staging manager needs to know, how many teams do I have out there? What resources do I have available? What incidents do I need to send people to? What incidents do I need to send resources to? And then prioritize, where do these response teams go? Does it make sense to send a team of 7 to help one person? Or should they go help 5 people at another incident? Does it make sense to send them to an incident that's clear across to the other side of the neighborhood, or to the incident that's just a block over? That's where prioritizing comes down to. For the scribe, you're probably going to be doing 3 things, one of 3 things: tracking teams, tracking incidents, or documenting radio traffic. And this is where we're going to be focusing this presentation on, are the scribe and radio communicators. We're going to talk about the entire flow and how these incidents get reported in and how they get handled at each level. As a communicator, you're going to probably just be communicating with teams, or you're going to be communicating up to or with other staging areas or to the command level teams. Pretty simple. We try and just simplify this enough so that it makes sense and it doesn't get overly complicated. As a staging manager, your primary duty is to create a culture of safety. And this is seen over and over again in different businesses, different enterprises, different jobs. If you as the leader don't embrace safety, your employees, your staff, your followers, your victims won't either. They were just talking on the news about the movie shooting Rust, where there was not this culture of safety, and there were firearms on the movie production set, and the people who were supposed to make sure that these firearms were handled safely and there was no live ammunition in them failed at their jobs. They were having fun, they were going out shooting, and they were not where they needed to be. And unfortunately, someone lost her life because of that. So what you do at the top trickles down. If you tell everybody, you remind everybody, be safe, don't take chances, communicate up if you have any questions, get that conversation going. Let's make this a group decision so that everyone makes it home safe. Everyone will hopefully make it home safe. There's no guarantees in life, unfortunately. But if you're playing fast and loose with the rules and you're saying, just get it done, I don't care what it takes, take chances, just get it done, the chances of someone getting injured or worse, they're astronomical. And it doesn't have to be that way. There's no reason for it to be that way. We can't help people if we're injured ourselves. You define the mission, you define the roles, you delegate where you need to. Don't delegate where you don't feel comfortable not delegating. You control the big picture, and it is your job to make sure everyone makes it home safely. I will harp on this over and over again, because that is what a team leader does. Make sure everyone makes it home safely. From the big picture, you're standing there at the map board. You know the neighborhood. You see where teams are going to be. You see where they are, where they should be, where they were. You know where the incidents are and where people need help. And you decide, okay, we have resources here that just became available. Where do they need to go next? And that map board is going to be your helm. You're going to stand there and look at it and go, okay, I could send them clear across town to help one person, or I can have them help multiple people along the way. What is the greatest good for the greatest number of people in the shortest amount of time? And that's where your team comes in. They're helping you gather information, put it on the board so that you can see what you need to do to make that decision, that criticality. Where do I need to send people? Where do I need to send resources? And also know your teams. If you send a team to an incident that they don't have the skills, the training, the equipment to handle, you set them up for failure. So maybe we can't deal with this incident because we don't have the tools. Maybe it is beyond our ability. Maybe we can get the fire department to take care of that. Or unfortunately, maybe there's just nothing we can do about it. But if we send a resource over there and they can't accomplish the mission we asked them to do, at least not safely, then you risk the team, but you risk the people who you could have had them save if you sent them there instead, where they could have done good. What you want to do as staging manager is delegate as quickly as possible the duties that you don't need to do. Sign in and out of volunteers. Well, when you're first person there, you're going to sign in yourself. You're going to sign in the next few people. You're going to get a team out, maybe 2 teams out. If you don't have 50 people showing up all at once, you can do this yourself. But as you have people coming in who can take over this job, hand it off to somebody else. Give it to a scribe whose job now is to start doing team management. They're going to track the volunteers, find out their skills, find out their abilities, put them on teams, start having them form. What's the next team that needs to be set up? We need a damage assessment team. Oh, we need an incident response team. Okay, get that team signed up and put someone who's capable of being a leader, put a good scribe on there, put a good radio operator, and then fill out the rest of the roles. Radio communication. As staging manager, you want to get rid of the radio as quickly as possible. That is a hard lesson to learn, because the person with the clipboard and the person with the radio, they're the people in charge, right? That should not be the case, because the radio is distracting. If you're talking on the radio, you're focused on who you're talking to on the radio. If you have a clipboard in your hand, you're focused on the clipboard. You're not able to see the big picture. You're not able to have that 360-degree view of everything that's going on around you. Those are things that you need to delegate. You want to delegate what is not your priority. And those are things that other people can do. Incident tracking. You should be tracking where you need to send people to, but you're not talking to the teams. You don't want to be the one talking with all the teams, finding out the details of the incident. Let someone else handle that. Let a scribe and radio operator pair work on that, and then provide you that clarified information with just the details that you need to make that educated decision. Okay, that is a high priority. We have the skills, we have the resources that can handle this, and we have them available now, and it's close enough. We can get them over there in a reasonable amount of time. Scribes. There's a lot of roles for scribes here. Again, most important person. Your job, you're writing things down, you're documenting. There's a bunch of forms to help you out with. In our document package, we've really curated the forms, and we've used different forms from different environments, but these are all standard forms. We haven't recreated the wheel here. These are either older CERT forms that are better than the newer ones, or the newer CERT forms And then we've modified a couple of them just where we felt we needed more information. So team tracking is probably the first thing you're going to want to delegate to a scribe. You want to sign them in and out, and they're going to use Form 2 personal resources. We've modified this a little bit, and we'll show you the slide with the form, but you want to sign in volunteers and you want to sign them out. Before they leave, they need to sign out, because what happened to Bob? Well, I don't know. He was with you, wasn't he? Well, no, I haven't seen him in hours. Is Bob alive? Did Bob go home? Did Bob fall in a ditch somewhere? We need to find Bob because we need to make sure he made it home safely. Well, someone didn't sign him out, or Bob's like, I'm done. I'm just going to go home from here. I'm close to my home. I'm not going to tell anybody. That's not great. We've had this happen at drills where someone's like, this is more than I signed up for. I'm out. And they didn't tell anybody, or they tried to. Fortunately, another volunteer escorted them back to staging and had them sign out before they left. Additionally, you want to really rank and identify skills. And the reason we say that this form is something that the scribe should be filling out. Reading other people's handwriting is horrible. Trust me. It's not something you want to do, especially when adrenaline is going and they're scribbling on here and you can't make any details out. You fill this out because you're the one who has to read it. And the volunteer you hand this to doesn't know how to fill out this form. That's what we get over and over again. It's pretty simple. It says what it needs, but when you hand it to someone and they don't know what this is, they're going to fill it out incorrectly. So you're going to rank their skill from 1 to 5, or print no if they don't have that skill. This column we added, CERT trained. Not everyone is going to be CERT trained. And they tell you this in the CERT class. You as a CERT trained person can lead non-CERT trained people, because you're going to make sure they make it home safely. But they have a lot of things they can offer because they want to help, and maybe they have skills. So CERT trained, yes or no? First thing, hey, are you CERT trained? Yes, cool. What's your name? Write it down. Cell phone number, in case we need to find you, when cell coverage restores. Check-in time. What time is it right now? And here, when they leave, what time did they check out? This can also be used when you assign someone to a team, though gets complicated, because I think this should be more for who's come to the staging area, and when they're gone from the stage, they've gone home, you have one clean record of it. We have other forms that can do the tracking of the teams. But this is going to be up to the scribe that's handling this. Everyone's going to do things a little bit differently. Rank the skills. Okay, how are you at radio communications? 1 to 5. 5 being you're an expert, you teach this. 1 being what's a radio? Or maybe 0 is what's a radio. Medical. We've added at the bottom a cheat sheet here. Medical, if you're an EMT or greater, 5. If you're an emergency medical responder, 4. You have a current first aid CPR AED certificate, 3. You have an expired first aid certificate, 2. You're only CERT trained, 1. You have no training whatsoever, no or 0. Very simple, but it allows you at a glance to find out, okay, this person's an EMT, they're a 5. They're probably we want to assign them to a medical team. Maybe not damage assessment team. Consider holding this person back. How good are you at writing? How good are you at scribing? Again, you're going to want these people, the 3, 4s, and 5s here. There's going to be a lot of jobs for them. Search and rescue. It's iffy depending on your locality and how much search and rescue you expect to do. And then leadership. How much experience do you have leading a team? And if you have someone who's saying they're 5s across the board, and we get these people, ask them, talk to them a little bit more, dive in a little bit, because chances are no one is a 5 across the board. If they say they're a 5 across the board, be suspicious. No one is perfect. My scribing is going to be a 0. I can't read my own handwriting. And I probably wouldn't rank myself. Well, I'm an EMT, so I'll rank myself a 5 in medical. I'll probably rank myself a 4 in radio comms. In leadership, maybe a 4. But I'm going to limit how many 5s I give myself because I try and be realistic. Maybe a little bit too realistic or too overly critical. But I don't want to be put in a position where I'm out of my depth and I brag about all the skills I have, and then I'm faced with the fact that I'm leading my team to failure. Other skills, special equipment, here you can put any notes here. If the person says, oh, I've got a chainsaw, cool, put a chainsaw here. I've got a crowbar, maybe useful, but this is up to you as you're filling out this form for your volunteers as they sign in to put anything relevant here that they say they're capable of. They say they're a paramedic or doctor, maybe write that down there. All right, so after you do the personnel resource, you're going to start assigning people into teams. And again, this should be a scribe. It's probably going to be the staging manager at the very beginning, but this is one of the tasks you want to quickly delegate to other scribes. Get your teams out, get your damage assessment team out first, your first damage assessment team, before you start trying to delegate. Don't delegate all the roles immediately. You can handle this when there's only 3 people who've shown up to the staging area. You don't need to task out a bunch of scribes and then have no one in the field. But when you have 5 or 6 people at the staging area, a couple people in the field, or a couple teams in the field already, you should have delegated these already to other people. This is not something that you need to deal with a couple hours into the incident, or it shouldn't be if you're the staging manager. Scribe, who's dealing with team tracking. You're assigning volunteers to damage assessment teams, and you're going to be working with whoever's doing the personnel sign-in, or maybe you're one and the same. You've got their skills, now you know you're going to start assigning people to teams, and you're going to be talking to the staging manager and saying, okay, this is who we have here. This is how I feel like we should put them onto teams, get the sign up of the staging manager, make sure they're involved in this step. When teams come back from damage assessment, or you have enough people there at the staging area, start assigning volunteers to incident response teams. This is the assignment tracking log. And we added an extra line here. So you'll see that there's 6 places for volunteers, but higher up, there's a team leader. So you want to put the team leader here and then up to 6 others in the team. The team should be no more than 7 in size. Just because if you have 15 people on a team, what are they doing? You could have 2 teams out instead of 1 massive team. So this is to guide you. People get this wrong. They always put the team leader as number 1. And maybe we'll renumber these so it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and then put 1 here at team leader. That might make things a little bit easier. As I said, we're constantly adjusting and learning from our lessons. What type of team is this? Is damage assessment team or incident response team? What's the location? What area they're searching? Incident response team, they're going to get assigned missions. They're going to go all over the place. Damage assessment, they're going to go to one specific route. And then the team names are, so you don't have to think about it. We're just going to go with the NATO alphabet: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel. The first 4 teams are always going to be damage assessment teams: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. Even if you don't have 4 routes and you only have 3, Delta is, or Charlie and Delta are going to be reserved for damage assessment. So it's standardized across the board. If they're Alpha team, they're going to be following Alpha route. So Alpha team, Alpha location. Simple enough. Then you're going to put your team leader here and their contact information. Cell phones may or may not work, but unless it's an earthquake, there's massive disruption to the infrastructure, cell phones will probably work. So put the contact information here, because if you lose contact with the team on the radio How are you going to get a hold of the team? Oh, they have a cell phone that may work. What time are they leaving? And then what time do they get back? What's the objective of the team? Their damage assessment. This is probably less useful, the objectives and results, than more of you want to track who's on the team and what role are they serving. Radio logging, this is pretty straightforward. If you have enough scribes that you can put a scribe with a radio operator, it's a great asset to the radio operator. Some radio operators are great at taking their own notes. Others, having that scribe there with them is going to be a massive assistance. It's not the first role I would fill, but I think it's very helpful because 2 ears are better than one. 2 people listening to the radio, sometimes second person is going to catch something the first person missed. And then that scribe can share information to the person doing the incident tracking, share it with the staging manager. They don't have to be tied up with the radio. They're able to get up and move around and then come back and support the radio operator. Communication log, pretty simple. What time did it come in? Who's it from? Who's it to? What's the message? Pretty straightforward. And for lack of having this form, a blank sheet of paper, a notebook, it doesn't need to be this form, but it's pretty straightforward. You don't need to have it word for word what the message is, the gist of the message with the relevant information. And that's really who, where, what, the salient points of the information. What team was calling in? Oh, it's Alpha team. Okay. Or it's Delta team. Okay. Where are they? Sometimes your last known location is all we have to go on when we've lost contact with you. And more importantly, you may not know the area. So getting an address, as useful as that is, sometimes the closest cross streets are going to be far more critical to finding them quickly on a map than the address number. So I would get both. We're at 4222 Main Street. Okay. What's your closest cross street? Oh, it's Los Angeles Street and Main Street. Great. Now I have a basis. I can find Los Angeles and Main. Okay. The map I have doesn't happen to have addresses on it. So knowing where on Main Street that person is going to be a little difficult. Get the actual address and the cross streets, closest cross streets. What do they have? What kind of incident are they reporting? How many survivors do they have? Age, sex, chief complaint, no names. But what are we looking for? We're looking for a 13-year-old male with a obviously broken femur. Okay, I show up, I'm looking, I find an 80-year-old female with a bruise on her head. Not the person I was looking for or expecting. What's the stability of the situation or the injuries? Sometimes you're going to have people who are going to die if they don't get immediate medical attention. Your team has triaged them, they've stabilized them the best they can, but this person needs to go to the hospital now. That incident response team can get out there and hopefully keep them alive long enough to get the paramedics there to transport them, or an ambulance, or get them in the back of a vehicle, figure out how they're going to get this person to definitive care. Or maybe the situation is completely stable. This person twisted their ankle and they can't walk. Well, they're not going to die, but they need help. Unfortunately, they're going to wait for a while. But you don't want to send a team to deal with the person with the sprained ankle when you have someone who's bleeding out a few blocks away. And if you deal with the sprained ankle, you get them, get them to their home. By the time you get to the person who's bleeding out, they're dead. Not a good use of resources. What are the risks? Are there dangers? There's fallen power lines. They don't appear to be active, but we don't know that they're not. We can smell gas in the area. We tried shutting off the gas, but we still smell it. There's a barking dog that would really like to have a conversation with us, and we don't know if he's friendly or not. We don't want to find out he's not friendly. Those are the things that you want to get when you're talking to the teams and you're building up an incident and documenting that incident. And then what do they need? Well, the person with a sprained ankle, they need some help getting home. Cool. This person who's bleeding out, we've managed to stop the bleeding, but stop the spurting of red blood, but they need to get to definitive care rather quickly. Incident tracking. So you're going to first start to build a scribe assigned to incident tracking, or maybe you're the only scribe there with the radio operator. You're going to start building this briefing assignment, and you're going to have one form per incident. It's really important to know, is this an incident or is this simply situational awareness? It's something we're not going to be able to handle. Probably not an incident. Or there's no danger to life or limb, not an incident. It was just situational awareness. So you're really trying to figure out, okay, is this an incident or is it not an incident? It is an incident. I'm going to start a briefing assignment, and this is going to track all the way through the incident's life. As the team goes out, this form will get filled out and updated. And the scribe on the incident response team that gets this assignment should be filling out one of these as well. They should look fairly similar to each other. We're probably going to modify this so we put the incident number in here, but what time? If a incident response team goes to this incident, what time did they go? What time did they complete the incident? What team got assigned to this incident? What's the location of the incident? What are the objectives? You have a 45-year-old male with a femur break. The damage assessment team put a tourniquet on above the injury. This person needs to get transported to definitive care. Okay, so you're going to fill that information out, and there's more of the form that I didn't put in this picture, but there's more place on the form where you can fill out details about what this incident is. And then when you get response back from the team, if there's any kinds of hazards, fires, number of trapped or injured survivors, any threats to animals out there, you can put this on the briefing assignment so that when it gets assigned, that information will be shared with the team. After you've completed the briefing assignment, and you're going to refer to the rapid needs assessment. And this is an older form that I really like because we don't have something similar in the newer form sets. There should be one master list, and this is going to give you the incident number. These go from 1 to 10. So on page 2, you're going to make it 11 to 20, for those of you who can count. Third sheet will be 21 to 30. So you just write a number next to that number as you increment, and that's going to be your incident number. So again, one master form. You may have a copy and the staging manager may have a copy, or there might be a couple other scribes involved, but only the master copy assigns the incident number. You don't want to have duplicate incident numbers, because when someone's calling in about incident number 5 and there's 2 incident number 5s, the amount of confusion that's going to cause will destroy the staging area. Just keep this simple, one master form. We use the briefing assignment so you can populate that information first, and then you can transport to the rapid needs assessment, get that incident number, and then what time did this incident get reported in, location. This is very similar information to what you captured on this form, which should have been captured during the radio contact. And any comments, any information here that needs to be known before the incident is dispatched, before you send a team to deal with this. You're documenting time, location, hazards, number of survivors. That's critical. If you have 10 survivors at one incident versus 1 survivor, that's going to change a lot on who gets assigned to this and what the priority of that is. Are there access restrictions? You hear people screaming in a house. Well, the house is locked and gated and bolted, and maybe there's no way to get into the house. Well, chances of you being able to help these people have gone down significantly. Maybe you take a second look, but you don't spend a whole lot of resources trying to get into this house that is, set up to be Fort Knox. Or maybe it's in an area that's covered in broken concrete, broken asphalt. There's gas lines, you can smell it. There's all sorts of hazards. Maybe this is not the place that you're going to go to first. And then, so you're going to do the briefing assignment. You're going to fill out the rapid needs assignment. You're going to get that incident number. You're going to put it on the briefing assignment. And then you're going to let staging know what you have and put this on the map board. Put the location on the map, identify it with an incident number. So staging manager can look at the map and go, okay, Echo team is completing incident number 7. Looks like they're actually pretty close to incident number 4. What is incident number 4? Incident number 4 is something that they can't handle. Okay, what's the next closest incident? Or what's the next most critical incident? And that's just quick reference so that you're going to go then back to that rapid needs assessment and reference the incident numbers. So you really want the rapid needs assessment form to be pretty close to that map board and something that the staging manager is going to be dealing with, even if there's another scribe assigned to maintaining it. Incident flow is going to go something like this. Radio operator begins taking information from a team in the field. They're going to get the who, what team is it calling in? Where are they? 445 Main Street. Closest intersection is Main and Los Angeles. What do they have? They have a 45-year-old male, trip and fall with a head strike. The survivor has lost consciousness and is bleeding out. We've stopped the bleeding as best we can. However, the survivor has not regained consciousness. Okay. Sounds like an incident to me. Determine, is this an incident or just situational awareness? Can we do something about this? Do we have the resources and the training to do something about this? Will this person die if we don't do something about this? It's an incident. Or we found a dead body. Well, can we do anything about the dead body? The answer is no. If you find a dead body, it's not an incident. Be aware of it. Mark it on the whiteboard that there's a dead body here. However, don't give it an incident number because there's nothing you can do about it. We have a fully engulfed home at this address. Okay, that might be an incident number because while we can't do anything about a fully engulfed home, we need to call this up to the fire department and have them do something about it. So we want to track this incident. This is something pretty critical. The dead body, I would not make it an incident. And not give it an incident number at the very least. How many survivors? What's the urgency? What's the stability of this person? They've tourniqueted the person. They've stopped bleeding. However, they've not regained consciousness. What resources are needed? Well, this person needs to go to definitive care. Somebody loses consciousness, it is a medical emergency. People should not lose consciousness. If they're still unconscious, it is a severe medical emergency because we don't know why they're still unconscious. Chances are you don't get better from something like that without medical intervention. So you begin filling out and this is either going to be the radio operator or it's going to be the scribe assigned to the radio operator, or it's going to be the incident tracking scribe that's been assigned to the radio operator and the scribe. So you start form number 4, the briefing assignment. And then you're going to transfer that information over to the rapid needs assessment form. You're going to get that incident number and put it on the briefing. And then you're going to walk this over to the staging manager and say, this is what we have. At 445 Main Street, we have incident number 5, trip and fall with a head strike. Survivor has lost consciousness. The team has stopped the bleeding. However, the survivor has not regained consciousness. Put it on the board, and then hopefully we can get a team out there. As staging manager, your job is to prioritize response. Your guiding principles here: do the greatest good for the greatest number of people in the shortest amount of time. If you have any questions about how do I prioritize this, always go back to that mantra. The use of form should look something like this. Form 6, your communications log. That's where things start. That's where you document stuff first. Then you transfer it over, and if you're a radio operator with a scribe, they can start filling out the briefing assignment. As the radio operator, you can fill out the comms log. If you're a radio operator with 2 scribes, one scribe is going to be filling out the communications log. Your second scribe is going to be filling out the briefing assignment. Be flexible. Do what you have. The more people you have to help, the better. But don't get hung up on, I need to fill these roles. I need 2 scribes with me as the radio operator. No, if you have more priority assignments for the scribes, but if you have enough resources, cool. You can have multiple scribes with you. After briefing assignment 6 is filled out, that information gets transferred over to form number 1, the rapid needs assessment, and then it gets put on the whiteboard, on the map board. In an ideal situation, this is something like what the staging area would look like. You would have a table, maybe. You have a radio communicator, a scribe on either side of them. When we do the drill, this is how we're going to set people up. We're going to set a radio communicator. One scribe is the radio scribe. They're documenting the form 6. And the second scribe is starting the form 4, the briefing assignment. Your map board and your staging manager are far enough away that they don't have to listen to that radio communication. They don't need to be, 3 blocks away, but not standing on top of the other team. That staging manager is there, making sure they have a big picture. They know where their teams are. Radio scribe can say, hey, Alpha team just called in. They're at the corner of walk and don't walk. Updated. Okay, we now know where Alpha team is. Delta team just called in. Echo team just called in. Cool. Update the map board. Let the map board show where the team's last radioed in from. And the team should be calling in every time they make a turn and every 15 minutes if they're walking in a straight line. If you are a staging manager and you have a scribe with you, they can also be your deputy. If you need to go to the restroom, you're going to be back, that deputy can take over for you until you come back. And then farther away, intercepting anybody who comes into the staging area should be that team tracking scribe. Signing volunteers in. If you have an assignment, team assignment scribe with them, or they're doing team assignment, they can do this as well. Start to form the teams away from everybody else. Don't crowd the staging area. We see this constantly at drills. Everybody is in the staging area under a pop-up tent or around the board. Everybody wants to see what's going on. It is not a good way to do things. Spread things out, give everybody some space, and that everything's going to flow a little bit better and be less claustrophobic. Incident prioritization. As I said, the greatest good for the greatest number of people in the shortest amount of time. This is the mantra of CERT. In addition to, we don't bring a victim to an incident. What is the greatest good? Well, can we save someone's life? Can we help save someone's life? Can we help save someone's limb? Can we prevent someone from needing to go to the hospital? Can we prevent property loss or damage, or further property loss or damage? Small fire, we put it out, cool. Big fire, a little bit out of our wheelhouse. But big fire, let the neighbors know. Maybe they need to evacuate because that big fire is going to start moving and it's going to go to other people's properties. Do we have the correct resources, incident response teams, for example, to resolve the incident? And that comes down to the amount of training and equipment and supplies the team has. If the team has no medical people, no medical experience, do you want to send them to a medical incident? They're going to get there and go, I don't know, guy's spurting blood. What am I supposed to do about it? I'm an accountant. We go, oh, we have an EMT on this team. They need to go to where the guy's spurting blood so they can stop the bleeding and hopefully save this guy's life or get them to where they can be saved. Do they have the correct equipment? We have a small fire. Does the team have a fire extinguisher? Or is there a fire extinguisher nearby? No? Maybe not the best use of this team. I mean, maybe they can figure something out. Find out what they have. Make sure that they can actually handle the incident. Oh, this team depleted all their medical supplies. Do we send them to another medical, or do we recall them back to restock their medical supplies before we send them to another medical? That kind of thought process is what should be going on if you're the staging manager. Greatest number. Am I saving one person, 2 people, 6 people, 20 people? If I save one person and 20 people die because I went to the wrong incident, was that the best use of my resources to help the greatest number of people? I would say no. In the shortest amount of time. Am I sending my incident response team across the entire neighborhood to the next incident to help one person versus sending them a block away to help 3 people? That's really what you're doing at the board, is figuring out where are my resources and where are they going next? What needs the most amount of help? And can I get resources over them in an efficient manner? If your team is so exhausted from going across the entire field that they need to recall because they can't go back out, you burn them out. But if you can line up a few incidents, and you don't want to plan it ahead, don't go, okay, Echo team is going to go to incident number 7, incident number 9, and incident number 3 in that order. Where are they going next? When they're starting to complete their incident, okay, they're wrapping up. Where are they going next? Only plan one step ahead, but keep in mind the big picture and where you need to get them to without burning them out. And how many other teams do I have? Maybe I have 2 incident response teams. I can have the other one take the north quadrant or the northeast quadrant or whatever. I can't give you a golden map on this. This is stuff you have to think about. So considerations for incident prioritization. What are the closest incidents to the next available team? You should know when the team is starting to wrap up. They should give you a hint on that. That's what that radio communication should be doing. We're wrapping up here. We should be done in the next 5 minutes. Start planning where they're going to go next. What incident needs the next available team? We have someone who's going to die in 30 minutes if we don't get over to them. That's high priority. Unfortunately, is the team capable of handling this incident? You don't have a medical team, someone's going to bleed out and they don't know what to do about it. Sending a team to them, I don't know how useful that's going to be if they're not a medical team. But maybe you just need to get a body over there. Maybe you can walk them through it, figure it out. But this is going to be considerations that you have to think about. Okay, what do we have? What resources are available? What skills do they have? Can we do something about it to save this person's life? Can a team help more than one person at once or fewer people? Just the numbers. Try not to send a team to help one person when you have 15 people that need help at another incident. Also, try not to get a team stuck somewhere. If you have one team that's helping one person who's got a sprained ankle, they can't do anything until they help this person. If they need to walk 3 blocks with this person, helping them get home, they're going to be wrapped up for a very long time. So prioritize what they can do quickly as well. The small incident, we have a small incident over here on the way to another incident. Maybe they can take care of that incident and then get going to the next one quickly. I mentioned this. If it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. Your documentation, your ability to track information, your ability to track your teams, this is all jobs that scribes do. They are the most critical. When you're training, you're practicing, have everyone try and get used to scribing, documenting, get used to using the forms. A versatile team member can fill in anywhere. They're going to be the most useful person on the team. If you have someone who is only good at radio, they can only do one job. What if you don't need another radio operator? Cross-train, have everybody try and be good or decent at everything. And then if you can get them to where they're great at something and they can do that, cool. But if they can do everything, that's even better. And they don't have to be perfect, but if they can do everything decently, they're going to be the most useful person on your team. I strongly would ask everybody to go to documents.ntp-la.org, look at the documents that we've written, review them. If you have questions, something's unclear, let me know. My contact information is there, patrick@disasterprep.org. We're not perfect. The documentation will never be perfect. We always make changes and updates. So if there's things that we can do that you see that's very obvious, let us know. And if it doesn't make sense to you, you're not stupid. It probably doesn't make sense to someone else as well. And we've missed this, so we need to clarify that. Videos.ntp-la.org, calendar.ntp-la.org, training.ntp-la.org, or just go to ntp-la.org and you can find all these things. If you have not yet done so, please sign up at join.ntp-la.org. That is our email list, so you can find out about these trainings. You can find out about the drills that we have going on, and we send out a couple emails a month so that we let you know about what's going on. Any questions? I hope that some of our coordinators and more experienced people have been answering questions that have been popping up constantly in the chat. So please stay muted, use the raise your hand feature, and then Chen will call on you and you can ask your question, and then please remute after you're done.
I would be more than happy. And we do have one person who says, I have a question in the chat box. Diane Lawrence, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you could just have one workshop just for the scribes, the people who want to be assigned scribes, to go through all the paperwork, and as opposed to just be in the middle of stuff and people running around and shouting at you. So that's one thing. The other thing too is, I was talking to you, one of the neighborhood councils, and I'm just wondering why there isn't more coordination going on between CERT and the neighborhood councils.
So the drill on Sunday, you get that. You're going to be given one job. You're going to be either the comms logger, you're going to be the radio operator, you're going to be the assignment tracker. You're going to have one form that you're using, so you can be proficient at that, or you can, after you get a few minutes of practice, maybe switch over to the next one. We'll be flexible on that, but that is the point of this drill, and this is going to be part of our regular routine of damage assessment, incident response, and staging area operations drills. So yes, and yes, it's a lot of information, but we had to cover it. In terms of the communicating with the neighborhood councils, we are. Every neighborhood team program that we've launched has been with the assistance of their neighborhood council.
Maybe there's just another little added thing of having, CERT members go into their neighborhood councils and communicating the need to have people step up and blah, blah, blah. So
absolutely.
I would say, I definitely say absolutely to that, because again, and as you rightly pointed out, Patrick and I are only two people, and we can only stretch ourselves so far. We haven't perfected the art of cloning yet. But the greatest,
some of our coordinators have actually been doing that as well.
I have been doing it every month.
But if you actually have a specific program and get us, get people interested on board and come up with a sort of program for that,
let me make one quick suggestion. That everybody can use. You can use in your different cities and towns. Depends on who you reach out to in your governmental structure. In Los Angeles, we do have what we call neighborhood councils, which are staffed by volunteer members who are pretty much equated to elected officials. But I will say that if we can have members who approach those bodies and become a regular liaison, like Diane, like yourself. It's like you can approach UNNC and say, hey, as a stakeholder in my community, I would like to see this become a priority. Work with them to see if they can, work to get people in the community interested. You become a cheerleader of that.
Right.
It goes a long way, and people like Patrick and myself are here for you as a resource.
And then one other really quick question. At the last session, we had a scribe. We had two scribes and a radio reporter, but the radio reporter was taking scribe notes while she was taking the reports, rather than giving the information to the scribes on either side of her. And that kind of seemed to drag the process down a bit.
It's
So-
learning, it's a learning process, and we'll continue to massage it as we do more exercises. Patrick, you were going to say.
Yeah, some radio operators are perfectly fine taking their own notes. We don't want to discourage them. But that last exercise, also the second scribe was completely disconnected, and we didn't even realize it, which is why this presentation came out of that exercise. So lessons learned.
Absolutely. And I see Ralph Quint over there. You have a question. Come on up with your question.
Yeah, I have actually a couple of comments. One to the forms, because I did at some point at one of the drills in West Adams a few months ago, both the scribe and the radio operator. And I found out it's very hard it's a lot of work doing both at once, especially if it gets very busy, if you have several teams reporting it at once, or you need to get back to them. I would suggest to some redesign of the forms to use that they have more space. For example, go from the portrait form to landscape, because if you write very quickly, if you're in stress, the smaller the area is, the harder it gets actually to get readable information out there. And another thing, pretty much in response to Diane, for once, whoever is doing the scribe, they need to be not only be able to write properly, but they also need to be able to understand quickly and react quickly. If they are basically hard to follow up what happens on the radio, then you have a communication breakdown like what possibly happened there on the last drill that you mentioned.
Right.
Also, one thing that came up on some local discussion that I had with some neighbors here when I'm setting this up right now is the radio operator should not be using a headset, because the scribe need to be logging in, listening in.
Yes.
So if you have a headset on, it helps if it's very noisy for you to concentrate more on your radio communication, that you understand basically what somebody with a bad connection is trying to communicate. But on the other side, the scribe cannot listen in if you're wearing a headset.
And this is where we need to have the radio operator and scribe or scribes go a little bit farther away so that they're not in the midst of everything else. But also the staging manager needs to be good at corralling people and saying, okay, I need you guys to go stand over there. It's that tree half a block away. Go stand over there. We'll come get you when we need you.
But I think his point is well taken, to not use the headset, because I felt like the radio operator was not working with the scribes. She was working by herself, and that was very frustrating for the scribes, because we couldn't ask her questions because she was writing and she was listening. And so we couldn't get clarity from her. So anyway.
Yeah. And this is why we practice, we drill, we learn from our lessons, and everyone's a little bit different. So you'll have some people that are very standoffish, especially if they think they're very experienced at doing something, and for valid reasons. But this is why we practice, so that we smooth out these issues. You don't have to be CERT trained to come to any of our drills. We're going to give you a place to learn, and we're going to help you out.
One of the fathers of NTP, Ron Sokoloff.
Hey guys, I have one real quick question for you. I'm a little concerned about when Patrick was saying that the people that are responders are the ones who are the hands-on, whereas radio, scribe, team leader are not. And then you went and mentioned the fact that you might have on the forms for a damage assessment team, you might have 7 people. And my question was, what are these other people going to be doing if they're not being responders?
Damage assessment team is 3 people: team leader, radio operator, scribe. Your incident response team is up to 7. So you have the team leader, radio operator, and scribe, and that's your command element. And then you have responder pairs. So a pair of responders takes you to 5. 2 pairs of responders takes you to 7.
Okay, I need a clarification as far as the fact that yes, the DA people do not have teams of greater than 3.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
It's about resource management. There's no reason to have extra people on a damage assessment team because you need to fill the other teams. So
Right.
having a 5-person damage assessment team is a waste of resources.
Yeah.
And it's always good to get clarification. We did hit you with a lot of information tonight, so if there is indeed anything that you're confused or not clear on, please bring it up. Coming up next, Walter Hicks, come on up.
Hello. My question is, are there any in-person training opportunities in the Valley, or anything planned up here? Because for me to drive all the way down there for these things, I'd love to, but sadly, sometimes it's a little too much for me to drive.
Find us a location, we'll run a drill there.
Okay.
And also, I recommend as well, get involved with your, are you CERT trained, by the way, Walter?
I am.
All right, get involved with your team up there. You have a team up there, but there's one person on this call, on this Zoom session, Christy Adair, who is your bureau coordinator in the Valley. And she can definitely put you with the team, and definitely she, along with the battalion coordinators, can keep you up to date on what activities you can become a part of up there in the Valley. And Christy, being right on it, she just put her stuff in the chat.
Yep,
So
I see that.
that's why I like Christy. She's quick.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hi, Christy.
Hello, everybody. Yes, if you're in the Valley and you have not gotten an email from me, which is LAFDcertvalley@gmail.com, that means you're probably not on my list. We pretty much do monthly meetings anywhere in the Valley to help with your CERT skills practice. So send me an email.
And everybody coming out of that Valley, take down Christy's number. I see a couple of you guys coming up here. Take down not her number. Did I say her number? Everybody's got my number, but take down her email address and she will reach out to you big time. So that, and for everybody, especially if you're in the Los Angeles area, your CERT battalion coordinators and bureau coordinators are great resources. Get to know them just like you do everybody else, your senior lead officers and the PD, etc. Get to know us, and we can be massive resources for you. And moving on, Tanya.
Thank you. I want to thank you also for the wonderful information that you give every time I come on to these CERT programs. I really appreciate all the information that you give hour after hour, and I don't know how you do it. So thank you, Patrick and Chin. My question is, every month I meet with Susan Dubrin over in the Chamber of Commerce in Encino. So I'm kind of confused about the coordination. We're talking about neighborhood council, that we should get involved. Some of us should get involved with the neighborhood council, which I think is a great idea, trying to coordinate some of these organizations.
Well, Tanya, reach out to me because I'm also the chair of the committee for my neighborhood council, and I've been a CERT battalion coordinator for going on 22 years. So I've been around the Valley for a very long time, and I have a long list of contacts. I'm glad you joined NTP so we can connect.
All right, let's go to Matt, KJ7 over there. Come up and ask your question or make your comment.
Okay. Clarification on one question. The field teams, as you might call them, consist of a team leader, a radio op, and a scribe. Anything else?
Damage assessment team will be just that. Your incident response team will build on that with responder pairs. So you're not going to have one responder, hands-on responder. You're going to have two at minimum, because
So you would call it a pedestrian window survey, you might say.
damage assessment
Yeah.
and incident response. Those are the two kinds of teams that are in the field.
Okay. I think I got it. There was another point about people being able-bodied enough to do this. Yeah, you're not going to get that in the ham radio community where I'm from.
Hey, we need radio operators at the staging area.
Yeah, some people, there's one made a comment that, hey, we need more able-bodied people. And I immediately thought, oh, shit, I'm in trouble.
There's always a role for you at wherever. Just show up, give your limitations. Okay, I missed that point. If you have any physical limitations, let the person signing you in know. And
Mhm.
make sure if they assign you to an incident response team and they expect you trekking out the entire distance of the neighborhood and you don't feel comfortable doing that, say something.
And be very honest about what your limitations are in
Know your
everything.
limitations.
Yeah.
Exactly. I
And we
want-
do need younger people in the ham radio community, the MCOM community, because we need more able-bodied people. We're not going to sit around all day solving the world's problems by pushing buttons on a computer console. This is not an episode of Star Trek. All right, I think I made my point.
All right, Matt, great
do it.
point. I'm gonna jump here to a quick comment I see in the chat. It says from Mark Presky saying, I'm not aware of any Chamber of Commerce being connected to emergency preparedness organizations. There are different organizations with different functions, right? There are chambers of commerce which are working towards disaster preparedness. One of those is the Harbor Gateway Chamber of Commerce, which is hosting a class right now. So it goes to show you that any organization, should it want to become active in the area of disaster prep, can be a part of it. Harbor Gateway Chamber of Commerce, and I believe we'll be working with the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce later this year. So do not discount anybody. And in the past, we have had chambers of commerce look at becoming a part of this. So,
And we have a nonprofit that is more than willing to partner with those chamber of commerces.
exactly. And now I'm going to go over to Ralph Quint, who's been waiting patiently.
Yeah, thanks. I forgot actually one comment, which was the question about how to contact the neighborhood councils. I think the one big thing with this whole neighborhood teams program is that you or we need to do something and step up. Even if you don't have a neighborhood council that doesn't react, then you need to start something. If you make noise, you start a group. At some point, they just have to acknowledge how much response you get from them, how much support is another question, but you at least can start something. I'm pretty much in a similar situation because in the area where I'm in unincorporated LA County, we don't have a neighborhood council that has, for example, has money. We have our civic association. I'm on the board of directors there, but this very limit what the civic association actually can do because they don't have any money. So I'm starting this basically. I get off my butt and start something, see how it goes, and hopefully get a team together that really can help my community. And that is pretty much the same thing. The only thing yet you can do if you don't get a response from your neighborhood council.
Well, I also just put up an outline of what I think could possibly help to create a CERT group of people, us here, who will meet together on Zoom and come up with a presentation that we're all in agreement with, and then go to our neighborhood councils under the auspices of CERT, not as individuals, but under auspices of CERT outreach, and do a presentation. And at the end of it, take names. And then we have to follow up and get together with those people to help them organize their neighborhoods. So it's but it would be specific group that, as opposed to me doing it on my own, you doing it on your own, we would get together. And so I just threw that out there. I mean, I don't know, how we want to follow up, but this could be done, but that's so.
Reach out to me, Diane. Let's get that conversation started, and we'll loop in our bureau coordinators and some of the battalion coordinators as well.
Yeah.
And have something
Absolutely.
organized for that.
Yeah, because it looks like something that's supposed to happen. And so, so anyway, okay.
And stay tuned, everybody. And folks, take a look at what Diane has put in the chat. You may be able to take some of this and adapt it to your town or whatever, wherever you are, your township, your hamlet, whatever it is, and you may be able to use this. But the one thing I do want to emphasize is that this has to be more than one conversation. It has to be a constant conversation. Once you open that door, you have to keep ushering it through, so it stays in everybody's front brain and doesn't get pushed to the back with other issues like quality of life, homelessness, etc., which are all battling for time and are all valid. So
Speaking of time, we have 3 minutes and 3 hands up.
3 minutes and 3 hands. So everybody in here will have to be brief and to the point. Matt, go ahead with your question or comment.
Okay. Heard rumors that you have some FRS radios interspersed throughout your communications plan.
Everyone should have an FRS radio. We're stocking commercial radios at the staging area kits. FRS can, it needs to be a local decision on your comp plan, because FRS can be really bad in some areas and perfectly fine in others.
And if
But
so,
everyone should have an FRS radio.
what do you recommend? All I was ever able to find in the 2-watt range was the DeWalt DX FRS 800. Anything else?
On the NTP website, we've got a couple recommendations.
NTP. Give me a link.
LA.org.
He's going to toss that down in the chat. And there are some good quality FRS radios out there. And for the most part, in our general CERT plan, FRS is factored in, and it's basically used by a lot of our ground level members to communicate among teams over short distances, et cetera. So it is factored in. So there you go. And it just goes continuously up the chain to GMRS to ham, et cetera. So there you have it.
Those require licenses.
Yes, they do. All right, Patrick, we are just a little bit past the top of the hour. We are 4 minutes after. You want to do that closing?
Yes, thank you everybody for coming. I put my email address in the chat, patrick@disasterprep.org, as well as our neighborhood team website, ntp-la.org. If you get my emails, you can always reply back to that. If you don't get my emails, sign up so you get our emails. join.ntp-la.org, and we'll be back next month with another riveting presentation if find a topic to talk about.
And everybody, I always like to end a presentation by just simply saying thank you for the privilege of your time. There's a number of places you could be tonight, doing a number of other things, maybe even sleeping for you folks who are in the Eastern time zone who joined us tonight. And thank you for joining us each month. Thank you for the privilege of your time.
Thank you, everybody.